This is a podcast about new crops. You're going to love it. Join us on The Cutting Edge, a podcast in search of new crops for Wisconsin.
I'm laughing. I visited farmers markets where they were selling elderberry stuff. And I said, hey, have you ever tried an aronia berry? Because one, we're better from a health benefit standpoint of all the nutrients we've got in there. And two, it's a lot easier to grow and harvest than it is an elderberry.
Welcome to another episode of The Cutting Edge, a podcast in search of new crops for Wisconsin. I'm Stefan Mirsky, Outreach Specialist for Emerging Crops with UW-Madison Extension. I'll be your host today, and co-hosting with me is Jordan Schuler, Extension Educator for Jefferson, Rock, and Walworth counties. How's it going, Jordan?
Going good, Stefan. Excited to be here and learn about some aronia berries.
Cool. Me too. A quick interruption to say that Jordan's internet went out shortly after we started recording, so if you're wondering why she's so quiet, now you know. Okay, back to the intro. So today's episode is all about aronia berries, and specifically the markets for aronia. We have two guests with us today to help us explore that topic. Dale Hilgenkamp is an aronia farmer and president of the American Aronia Berry Association. Alongside him is Dean Duval, chair of the research committee for the association. And I'll have both of them introduce themselves and give a little background on their experience with aronia. Dale, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'd be glad to. We live approximately 35 miles northwest of Omaha, Nebraska. I've been a grain farmer my whole life. We first planted our aronia berries in 2009, so we've been at it for a while. Enjoy growing them. I've been on the board of the formerly the Midwest Aronia Association. We changed our name a couple of years ago to the American Aronia Berry Association to give it broaden its scope a little bit. I've been on the board for about 4 years, I guess, so far. The last 2 years I've served as president, and we're just trying to do what we can to promote the aronia berry and gain some market penetration.
Great, thanks, Dale. Dean, do you want to introduce yourself and give us some background on your experience and your role with the association?
Certainly. I grew up on a farm in northwest Iowa, about 65 miles now north of Omaha, and I kind of switched careers. Went to graduate school at Iowa State, got a doctorate in chemistry, worked for Procter & Gamble for 32 years. Also taught some at the University of Cincinnati, and I got interested in aronia, and we started planting them around 2015. And my interest in it was from a health standpoint. I had heard about the health benefits. I knew it was very high in the phytochemicals. And so I've been kind of exploring that part as well as trying to grow them. And I've been on the board, I think, about a year and a half now. And what I try to do is share information, identify what's needed or what's out there from a scientific publication standpoint, share it with our growers and people that are trying to sell the berries. I'm also currently looking at the patent literature, trying to understand, what companies are interested in aronia berries, who's trying to protect what, and so forth. And again, it's about sharing information more than anything. But I grow the berries, I eat the berries. I've seen the health benefits personally, and so I'm an advocate of it. But I also realize, having worked for Procter for 30 some years, that you can't get something to market unless you get everything right, from the technology to the products to the message to the supply chain, et cetera. And that's part of the challenge that we face going forwards is how do you get everything right for a berry that frankly is astringent. When you put it in your mouth, it makes you pucker because of the chemistry. But that's also one of the health reasons. I mean, it's makes you pucker because there's so much health benefit chemistry in the berry.
Yeah. Can you just talk about like what are some of the products that Aronias are used in? Since they're so astringent, I'm assuming they're not really much of a fresh eating berry, but what kind of things do they work well in?
Well, in Europe, that's where the majority of the market is, you see them being used in wines, in jams and jellies, in syrups, also supplements, whether it's a powder, a capsule. I've seen it used in yogurts and breakfast drinks and so forth as well. It's also used as a natural food dye because it's a very dark, intense blue, purplish color.
Yeah, I agree with Gene too. I think primarily in the U.S., the biggest product so far has been the juice, either in just straight juice or in a concentrate form. Another big thing that's coming on is like Aronia powder, to be used as an ingredient in other products. And just lately, the gummies have really become popular in all, kinds of supplements and so forth. And there's starting to be some of those appear in the market as well.
Yeah, can you two just give like a broad market assessment of like where we are today with Aronia? What are the main markets?
Well, I can give you a little bit of our history. Like you said, it takes about 3 to 4 years to get in a significant production. And initially, we belonged to an Aronia co-op. We got a bunch of growers together. That probably survived for maybe 2 to 3 years, and then it failed. Then we got involved with another group of growers that this individual was retained to market the berries for us. We were involved with that for about 3 years, but nothing was happening. They were unable to really make any significant sales there. Then we joined another group. Actually, they were based out of Wisconsin that really had some success in getting a market organized. They were affiliated with a company, had a juice product going. They were making payments on a monthly basis, which everything was looking good. Then COVID hit, and that company, of course, their sales dwindled, and they eventually were forced out of business. And the group that we were affiliated with, they took a big loss. They were unable to pay them for the berries. So consequently, we weren't being paid, and they didn't have the sufficient capital to weather that. So that failed also. And just within the last year or two, there's been a couple of individuals that have assembled some teams, in research and, finances, have launched a couple of serious campaigns to introduce some products. And so it's looking, I think, better than it has for quite some time. But, I think that's the main thing. People have failed because of the lack of capital. And it's so expensive to, as Dean alluded to get products developed and, promote them. So that's kind of where we're at right now, in my opinion.
I think the people that are being most successful right now are people that are already attuned to agritourism. So, whatever their business is, whether it's having a vineyard and a winery on site or going to farmers markets and so forth to get started, those people tend to do the best because they understand the process, they control their own supply chain, they control their own business. And I've seen one example of one couple that they started out with energy bars, and they've expanded into supplements and so forth. They've done well. That company is out in Colorado. There's another one in Missouri that's more of a traditional agritourism where people come visit their farm and they'll come out of St. Louis or Kansas City. And so that model has been very successful. The model where people are trying to go big and so forth, I see some of those failing in terms of not having the proper product, not having the proper price controls, not having the proper supply chain. And the people that tend to get burnt the worst on it are the farmers, because we've grown the berry, we've invested in growing them, harvesting them, and cleaning them, and so forth, and then we don't get money back. And so that's kind of a catch-22. Now, that's not to say big companies aren't interested. I continue to see that, and certainly when I look at the top patent assignees related to Aronia berry, we're talking about big multinational food companies, drink companies, and so forth. And it's public knowledge, but they seem to be interested. But that part, there's a catch-22 in terms of, for a big company to get involved and to create a product or a brand, they need to have a big supply, and the supply chain isn't there yet. And so it's kind of the horse and the buggy question, which comes first, or the horse and the cart. But they're wanting to see more production, and farmers are wanting to see a big interest from somebody big, so they know it's going to take off. And I think there's a happy medium, or a way you get started before you get to that, with smaller fields, smaller production, and just getting the awareness out there. And a winery that I was talking to last year, or that was earlier this year, in central Iowa, when they started with their berries, and they've also got a nice vineyard, but they started growing Aronia berries. And in 2013, none of their customers had ever heard of Aronia. And when I talked to them earlier this year, they said now about 60% of their customers have heard of Aronia and are at least willing to try the wine. And so education's part of it, supply chain's part of it. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that have to come together, but at least it's looking brighter than it has been over the last, I don't know, at least 5-8 years with my experience. Dale, you want to comment on that?
Oh, I think you're exactly right. The big companies, the supply isn't there at the present time for them to, jump into the market to satisfy their needs. But on the other hand, people aren't willing to grow more until there's a market. So we're kind of going back and forth between those two states. And I agree. The smaller producers that are doing well, with farmers markets, people coming out to the farm. But if you're growing any significant amount, those aren't really practical. I mean, it's not a big enough market to absorb, a large production. So that's what we're trying to overcome right now.
So are you seeing growers kind of grow on like both sides of the either side of the spectrum, like very large scale to sell to wholesale markets, and then small scale growers to sell direct to consumers? Or what kind of scale are people growing at, and what scale is successful?
Well, in the last few years, I mean, the majority of growers haven't even harvested their crops because there's just been no markets for them. So there really isn't a good wholesale market. I mean, you can't call somebody up and say, hey, I've got, X amount of pounds of berries. What's the price? I mean, it's just not there yet. So, I mean, those groups that are finding success are, growers kind of band together and with their production so they can approach some of these bigger markets. And the small producers, it's very difficult for them because, they probably don't have a harvester. They have to hire it custom done. And also the transportation expense. Most of these are transported in, large semi-reefers. So, I mean, if you've got, just a few thousand pounds or, it's hard to pool those together with other growers to get them shipped as well.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a break point. And I mean, I would strongly encourage people not putting a lot of money into putting a bunch of acres into berry production. And I'm trying to remember, Dale, I don't remember the number exactly, what our median production is, or number of bushes. That's normally how we kind of count the size. But I think it was around 1,500 bushes is median, and you can't afford to harvest or to ship or, to be a large production with that. But it gets you started. If you have, say, 500 bushes in the ground, or 1,000, you're talking about an acre. You want to plant about 900 to 1,000 bushes an acre, and that's enough to get you started to do the small stuff. But it's not enough to really be involved in big production. but it's easy to propagate these plants once they're 4 or 5 years old. If you decide, okay, hey, I've had them in the ground 3 to 4 years, the business is now taken off, you can, take cuttings from the bushes you've got and you can quickly propagate up. But we've got members that have 30 to 75 acres, so a lot of bushes. And they have to go by way of trying to sell to wholesalers, but they can also afford to buy a harvester to bring in a reefer. I think the break point on a reefer is going to be probably 4,500 bushes, because that, if you're getting 10 pounds of bush, that's enough to fill a reefer. And then you can start selling to a wholesaler. So it's kind of like, what's your business model? And I, first and foremost, even though I'm a chemist by training, I think as a business person, it's been hammered into me over the last 30 some years working with Procter. And if your business model is small scale to get started, to learn the business, to learn the berry, to learn how to grow the bushes and to produce berries, I wouldn't get overly excited about, jumping in full foot or with both feet. But if you want to, if you've got a market, or if you're, and there's people that do all the clean harvesting up in Wisconsin. That's one of the nice things about your area. You because of the cranberry production and so forth, and the other small fruit production, you've got some ready-made industry in there. It's just a question of whether the market's going to take off. But there's a lot to learn when you get started. And so I would encourage not to invest, thousands and thousands of dollars to get started. I would suggest joining an association, going visiting some Aronia farms, learning how people are producing it and what the issues are, and then decide whether or not you want to start small scale, you want to start large, and whether you've got a market, or if you think the market's going to take off in the next 5 years.
Do most people starting off that want to start small, do they typically pick diverse berries, or are they just in on Aronia or just in on another berry crop?
I think there's some of each. I'm aware of several places that they grow, maybe blackberries, strawberries, grapes, that have kind of heard about Aronia and planted them. But I think most of the people in our association, they're just, they have an acreage, or, they take off a few acres from their regular farm, and plant Aronia. It's kind of to get started. I mean, we've seen people fail on both ends of the spectrum. A lot of small producers have tore up their plants or just don't harvest them, but because it's not that big of a financial commitment for them. But also, on the other hand, I've heard of large, 100-acre Aronia farms that were commercialized and have gone out of business. I mean, there was just no market there. So another big thing we face is, most of the world's production is grown in Poland, and they export, most of their crop all over the world, either as a concentrate or things. And, their farmers are subsidized by the government. So it's really hard to compete with that here when people can just import it for, a fraction of what they would have to pay here.
I think, and it's also a piece, as we're going forwards, I think it's a matter of understanding what are the pieces we're missing. For instance, Dale talked about the production in Poland. I think it's 95% of the world's production is in Poland. They'll freeze a lot of their berries, and some of the supplement companies in the US are actually buying those berries, shipping them to China to be processed for extracts, getting the extracts shipped to the US, and then they're selling the extract. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What's missing in our supply chain so that we cannot compete on that? And I think that's where being close to the food industry, or the juice and the berry industry, like the folks in Wisconsin, you can sort through what are your missing pieces, and can you borrow from other small berry or small fruit industries, such as extracting, freeze drying, and so forth, or however else you want to process it. And I think it's getting those pieces together. And I was the technology leader for Febreze when we launched nationally and internationally. And what I learned is you really have to pay attention to your supply chain, but you have to get all the other elements right. What's the product you're selling? What's your marketing? Who's your target consumer? What's your brand? How are you going to get it there? And I see people are starting to do better when it comes to like the quality of the juice and so forth. But if you're selling juice, what are you doing with the pumice? Can you make more money off from your side product or your waste streams and so forth? Are you controlling your costs on shipping, logistics, processing, and so forth? So there's a lot of business questions that a small producer has to figure out if you want to produce, enough to go to wholesale.
You mentioned that cranberries in Wisconsin, that there might be some sharing of resources or some overlap between Aronias and equipment. That I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit in more detail about how that industry in Wisconsin might benefit the Aronia producers.
I mean, we shipped berries up to Wisconsin before, and like Dean mentioned earlier, I mean, it's a great fit for Wisconsin because the seasons are a little bit different from cranberry to Aronia. So when they're done with cranberry, I mean, they can switch their processing lines over to cleaning and destemming over to Aronia. They've got the labor force, they've got the equipment, and they've also got plenty of cold storage right in a small area there. So I mean, it's really a good location. Cold storage rates are a lot cheaper in Wisconsin than they are here in the Midwest, which is another big plus. But the downside is, it costs a lot for us growers in the Midwest to ship them up there. It's kind of a detriment.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about grower networks, and I was wondering if you could go into that a little bit more and just talk about some of the networks that you're involved in and kind of the pros and cons of selling individually as opposed to being part of those grower networks.
Well, I mean, it's really difficult to sell individually. I mean, unless you're a really large producer, it's hard to approach, even smaller companies because, the volume they desire. I mean, a lot of these processors have minimum runs that they will do. So it's difficult to do that. And it's so capital intensive. Like I mentioned, we've been involved. This is about the fourth group now that we've been involved with. And like I said earlier, I think the biggest downfall has been the lack of capital. I mean, they've just run out of money, basically. I think of the story of Linda Resnick with the Palm Wonderful. I mean, they were billionaires to start with, and they dumped $25 million into just promotion and development. So, not very many people can afford to do that. So by teaming together with other growers, the group that I'm kind of aligned with now, I mean, there's, a significant number of growers. I mean, we've all invested in the company and they've got some other financial backing. So they are in the process of developing some products, but it's just so expensive. It takes a long time. So, but it's looking better than it has. And I think Dean is affiliated with another group. Maybe he can address his experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to learn from other people's mistakes and not invest a lot of money into groups or organizations unless I see that they've got everything that they need to be successful. And the group I'm in continues to grow. There's at least 30 growers that are involved in it. And I did not sell my berries last year, but we're also located in the center of the drought area that has hit the Midwest last year, so I wasn't too worried about it. But I also look for groups, or we're looking for groups that had all the requisite experiences, from being involved in the food industry to understanding processing, to somebody that understands supply chain, to somebody that understands the marketing side. And the group that I'm associated with has 6 different principals that have that requisite background and so forth. And they also are working with celebrities to get the endorsements, to also get the cash involved. And they've set it up where the farmers own a piece of the company by signing a contract to supply their berries with them. And we will hit it eventually, but I'd say you got to be in it for the long haul, and you got to be able to say, okay, I'm not worried about it. It's something I believe in because of the health benefits, It is the super berry that I don't, whether you're looking at just pure phytochemistries and it's the oxygen radical absorption capacity, it's number one versus all the other berries. If you're looking for the amount of anthocyanins, it's number one. If you're looking for the amount of resveratrol, it's number one. If you're looking for quercetin, it's number one. If you're looking for epicatechins, it's number one. So that's why I believe in the chemistries. Everything, I mean, we're behind in terms of awareness, education, and so forth. But if you look at the basics of the technology, it is the best that you can find that Mother Nature has made. It's now a matter of us as growers to work with groups that are putting the pieces together that also believe in the berry, that also have all the requisite capabilities to make it a breakthrough and get it to the big markets.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about competition in the market from other superfood berries like elderberries. They seem to have been getting a fair bit of traction in the last few years. And how has that affected the markets for aronias?
Well, yeah, elderberries, you know, they've been grown for a long time. People are well aware of their health benefits. I mean, anytime you walk into a natural food store, I mean, elderberry, there's elderberry honey, elderberry gummies, elderberry syrup, elderberry juice. I mean, they've done a great job of developing products, and most of those ingredients for those are imported. I mean, but we do have some advantages. I mean, elderberries have to be harvested by hand. They don't have the ability to be harvested mechanically like aronia berries do, and they've just done a great job.
But I would say, yeah, whoever picked elderberry though. I mean, I grew up on the farm and we made elderberry jelly and jam and so forth, and it's a pretty nondescript berry. But it was a royal pain because it's hard to harvest and it's to isolate it from all the stems and so forth. It's a really small berry. And I'm laughing. I've visited farmers markets where they were selling elderberry stuff. And I said, hey, have you ever tried an aronia berry? Because one, we're better from a health benefit standpoint of all the nutrients we've got in there. And two, it's a lot easier to grow and harvest than it is an elderberry. It's just, I laugh because they're doing a lot more work than somebody producing aronia berries has to do in order to get it into a product. So I think that inherent advantage is what's going to lead a switch in the market at some point.
Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity there? I mean, with elderberries coming on strong and new products being developed to incorporate elders, does that present an opportunity for aronias?
Well, the aronia industry has missed a huge opportunity here these last few years. I mean, of course, elderberry has long been known for its help with colds and flu and so forth. Aronia is excellent for that as well. In fact, I think one of the things we really need to capitalize on is, I mean, it's documented that Native Americans used aronia for that very purpose, to fight colds and flu. So, and they're native to America. So, and they're grown, here and in the Midwest and the upper parts of the states. So I think we really need to capitalize on that. And one other thing, also, especially with the last couple of years with COVID, there's been studies done that, this is all in vitro in a lab, but, aronia juice has actually killed the coronavirus, in a lab situation. So, I mean, there's some tremendous opportunities, there. We really can't say too much yet because, there haven't been enough studies done, but they're just, we're living.
The big advantage we have is aronia, because of its antioxidant capabilities, it really does help support the immune system. So whatever your health issues are, I mean, there's around 100 articles just on heart health, cardiovascular. There's a lot around gut health and so forth. But in reality, what it's doing, there's a lot of different mechanisms, but it really does support the immune system, which is what fights your COVID. And I've been in a household that was ravaged by COVID. I lost my mother-in-law to COVID. I've never gotten sick with COVID, even though I've been exposed to it multiple times. Now, is that because I constantly take aronia berries? I don't know. I mean, I've been hit with flu bugs and cold bugs and so forth, but I've not gotten COVID. But I think it's because I've done things to really strengthen my immune system.
Yeah, I was going to ask how the markets have changed in the last 5 years or so, and particularly in response to COVID, because I think you mentioned earlier that some of the markets fell through during COVID, which is maybe a little bit counterintuitive, because some people may think that COVID would have helped the Aronia market. Can you just talk about how COVID has affected it and kind of what the trend has been in the last 5 years or so?
Well, we can't say too much because there hasn't been enough research done as far as Aronia preventing COVID. I would never go that far because but there are studies being done that shows. I think that study was done in Germany last year or so, but of course that was just one study. But I think Dean's right; it strengthens the immune system. But I think unfortunately the markets, there still really is no market. So in that sense, things haven't changed. But as we've discussed, there's a couple grower groups that have gotten into the mix now. I mean, they're well capitalized and can do the research and product development, and the promotion is what's really been lacking. I mean, we can't afford, even as an association, our numbers have dropped pretty significantly over the last number of years just because there has been no viable market. But we just don't have the funds to do a large scale nationwide promotion. And like I said, the berries really aren't there right now either to sustain that. But so it's kind of slow going.
Well, I think in general it hurt agritourism too because people were afraid to go out in public and so forth. And I think people are finally getting over that. So I expect agritourism to pick up. I know over the last 3 years, a number of food companies were doing the research and investigating aronia for various foods, additives, and so forth. So, I mean, it's not like the work behind the scenes wasn't happening. It was. It just hasn't come to fruition yet. I think our biggest detriment when it comes to selling berries is awareness. They'll mention, I mean, the Potawatomi Indians hundreds and hundreds of years ago were using these berries for colds and so forth, but nobody's aware of that. And I think education is a big part of that. That requires marketing dollars. We don't have that. But I think that's coming along where, because of the general health trends, people are more interested in healthy foods and so forth. Unfortunately, they're also interested in ready to eat, very convenient foods. And aronia isn't a convenient, ready to eat food if you're buying the berries. You've got to process them, you've got to put them in something, you've got to cook them, whatever. And so we're really kind of dependent on the food industry getting to the point where they're delivering something to consumers that is, quote, healthy, convenient, and meets the consumer's needs and awareness. Now, when you think about where's the market for people that really like healthy foods, you think Midwest, or not Midwest, you think West Coast, East Coast, et cetera. Those are where the really healthy messaging works well. And we're growing berries in the Midwest. So how do we reach the right consumer is a big question too. And I think it comes through, on a large scale, it comes through using the food industry to leverage our message and to leverage our berries.
Mm-hmm. Can
You know, I just wanted to add one more thing about, the marketing. I was affiliated also with another group that had some products. They just sold like kind of in a direct marketing approach. And we passed that on to a number of our friends and acquaintances, and they tried the juice. But, this is not like taking a pill. Here in the States, we're accustomed to taking a pill and seeing immediate results. That really doesn't happen with, a lot of these natural foods. It just takes time for them to work in your body. And the aronia berry affects pretty much every system in your body. And people would try it for maybe a week or two and say, oh, I don't see any difference, and quit taking it. But you've got to take it for 3 to 4 months, maybe, before it varies with individuals, but before you see any impact. And also, I eat berries every morning in a smoothie. They're just great for that, and a great way to utilize them. But research has also shown that it stays in your bloodstream, the antioxidants, for maybe 3 to 4 hours. And so it's really important to maybe take another shot later in the day, just to keep that going. And speaking from personal experience, I saw a big difference then. Taking them in the morning and then taking some more juice later in the day, it made another huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to be patient and wait for the results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a good meta-analysis done last year. Some researchers out of Tennessee had looked at over about 400 papers. They then separated out about 25 clinical studies. Yeah, and most of the research is in vitro or in vivo, but they looked at they finally broke it down to 7 small clinicals that were done, double blind and so forth, proper clinical procedures. And they concluded that there was a clear blood pressure and total cholesterol benefit. And I'd encourage people to take a look at it. But personally, I had a medical procedure done yesterday. And yeah, I've had high blood pressure. And I had mentioned it. Well, when they got me on the gurney and checked my blood pressure, it was 113/64. And it's been that way. It took me about 9 months of taking Aronia supplement every day, but it's made a huge difference on my high blood pressure and my total cholesterol. I've had high cholesterol my whole adult life, and now I'm down in the 150 to 160 range. And part of it is a lifestyle change, but taking Aronia berries is part of that lifestyle change, and it's made a difference for me. But I also believe it took 9 months at least before I got to where I was feeling better. My mind was sharper, and my blood chemistry was where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's anything that is a chronic benefit is hard to convince consumers to stay with. And so you have to find a habit that's easy for you. I have freeze-dried powder in capsules that I take. Dale does the powder or the berries into the smoothies. It's what fits with your lifestyle, and that's where we have to have a variety of products that reach a broader range of consumers. But when you think about it, what's the percent of adults in the U.S. that have heart problems or blood pressure problems? It's almost half of the U.S. adult population. Same with gut, and even though it doesn't get into your bloodstream and so forth, and stay there very long, your immune system, about half of it is in your gut, and that the berries are there, the powder is there where it makes a long-term benefit on your immune system. So I think the types of claims, we're not medical doctors and we're not clinicians, but I would say expect to take it over a longer period of time to see benefits, because it's chronic and it's got the chemistries will do the work. You just have to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also need to do more from a research standpoint. We need to be working with U.S. universities versus universities all over Europe and Korea, China, and so forth. Most of the research is done outside the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you touched on how Poland is the world's largest producer of aronias. Does the U.S., I assume it imports a lot of berries from Poland. Does that affect the markets here? Does that undercut prices, or how does that affect production in the U.S.?
Oh, absolutely. We as an association have tried to identify how many pounds are coming in or how much juice. One of the problems is Aronia berries doesn't have its own individual category. It's just lumped in the category other berries. So it's hard to break that down and get accurate information to how much is coming in. But, as Dean mentioned also earlier, when you can, these big companies can, buy it overseas, have it processed somewhere and bring it here. And I think the numbers that I recall, imported juice or concentrate, whatever, maybe 25 to 30% of the price that domestic is. So most manufacturers are going to jump on that. That's why we're really trying to stress grown in America as part of the promotional work that we do, because it's just hard to overcome that price advantage they have.
I think long term, though, I mean, in some ways I'm a little bit different. I don't mind the competition or the supply chain, because that may bridge the gap between our lack of supply and large companies actually getting into Aronia. I think long term, because we have the advantage where we don't have to pay nearly as much for logistics or transportation as somebody that's producing it around the world or some other region of the world, we'll have an inherent advantages once we reach a certain scale. We don't have that advantage now because we don't have the scale. But if large manufacturers want to get started, I don't care, because I do believe in the American farmer long term being able to outproduce somebody halfway around the world.
I'm just wondering what kind of strategies producers in the U.S. can use to differentiate their berries from overseas berries, and specifically, I'm wondering, is there a market for organic?
Dale's the right person to talk on that one.
Yeah, as was mentioned, most of the people who take Aronia are really interested in the health benefits, and the organic growth is part of that. I mean, organic of all crops has been growing tremendously over the last number of years. So, I mean, yeah, there is, people who specify they want organic berries. I think that's really important, like at farmers markets and so forth. Or at least try to minimize the synthetic inputs you use as much as possible, which is kind of what we try to do. But that's tough with organic. I mean, there's weed issues become difficult, and so I mean, you need to have a premium. There are some products, excuse me, coming, I think, down the pike as far as organic herbicides and pesticide treatments, but they tend to be much higher cost. So yeah, I think it's heading that direction, but it's just hard to get there.
Yeah, I would say that the growers in Wisconsin have dealt with this on all of their other products too, where people want organic, but producing things organically is a ton more work and it's more difficult. And Japanese beetles love Aronia berries because it's in the rose family. It's their palms just like apples and so forth, and that's where the Japanese beetles love to go. And I haven't seen an organic, including neem oil, that's all that effective over multiple seasons at controlling that. But I would say I'd trust the farmers there because they're used to doing things with good agricultural practices or with their organic certified practices that whichever way they go, they're being very ethical in how they're producing their berries and not going overboard with chemistries that they don't need to be, because one, it's added cost. You're not going to do it unless you have to. But yeah, the farmers that are doing organic, they understand the issues and they can deal with the organic Aronia berries just like they do with organic cranberries or blueberries or any other small fruit crop.
I just read an article just in the last couple of days about the blueberry industry. This particular article stated that they spray an average of 7 times a year for pesticides. I mean, the aronia industry is nowhere near that. I mean, you may have to spray once for Japanese beetles, and that varies from year to year. And SWD, or spotted wing Drosophila, is another one that is really bad for blueberries. But the aronia has a tougher skin. It's harder for them to penetrate, to lay those eggs. So, I mean, that we've set traps out, and I mean, we've seen a few, but really not to the extent that you really need to spray. But so I guess that's one advantage too, that also is there with aronia. It doesn't require that intensive of a spray program, if
Yeah,
any.
I sprayed once 2 years ago and twice this year. And you know, it's around the end of June, mid-July, and that's it. And you're going to harvest 6 to 8 weeks later. So Dale's right. It's a hardy crop. There's not very many pests. So it's pretty easy to grow and pretty easy to prevent pests from overwhelming your production.
Are there actually markets for certified organic berries?
Well, you know, it's I would say, you know, yes and no. People want that, but and some of these groups are willing to pay more for organic for the reasons that we've just discussed. But you know, now most people, I think, would take either, you know, because of the limited pesticide that is used. But you know, definitely there's a trend towards more organic.
Yeah.
So just thinking about Wisconsin in particular, and you know, what would you say to somebody who is interested in growing aronia berries on their farm? They maybe, you know a little bit about them, want to expand into some alternative crops, have a few acres. Yeah, what would you tell them as they're, you know, exploring aronia, and just how to approach, you know, at what scale to grow at and what kind of preparation they should be doing before actually putting the plants in the ground?
Well, I think Wisconsin is ideally suited. Uh, Wisconsin tends to be more small farms, I guess, than here in the Midwest per se. You know, they're more small farmers up there. You know, a lot of dairies, so they, you know, may have a few acres they can produce them. You know, aronia, probably one of the biggest threats is a late freeze. You know, like when they're blooming. We don't experience it often here, and I'm not sure if it's really been a problem with Wisconsin, but seeming how it's naturally colder up there, that might be more of an issue. But they tend to flower later than most other plants, so that's kind of to their benefit. And we've already talked about the processing and storage facilities. So, yeah, I think you know, Wisconsin would be a great place.
Yeah. Well, and they're self-pollinating. You don't have to worry about the bees and so forth for the most part. But I would say step one, go visit somebody that's growing aronias. Every aronia grower that I've ever met has been more than willing to give advice, to talk about their experiences and so forth, good and bad, to share what works, what doesn't work. And the other thing I'd say, besides going and talk to somebody that has experience, is don't expect to put it on a field that, or someplace where it was lousy for corn and soybeans, so I'm going to plant this stuff. No, they require good soil just like anything else if you want good production. So make sure you get some experience. Find out what your soil chemistry is. If you've got a fairly alkaline soil, you're going to have to adjust the pH down, and make sure it's not compacted soil and so forth. So if you need to go, you know, plow the field or whatever to loosen up the soil to get it aerated and so forth, so be it. But I would make sure, one, you're putting it in a good place. You talk to people about what is their practices over a year. I mean, what are they doing in January and February to plan ahead, to get the right chemicals, to get the fertilizer and so forth? What are they doing when, you know, are they trimming the bushes when it's dormant and so forth in the February, March time frame? So when the buds break, then what are they doing? When do they start putting or start working on weed control? When are they putting the mulch, the fertilizer down? When are they spraying for the spotted wing Drosophila or the Japanese beetles and so forth, if that's a problem in Wisconsin? I don't know if it's gone that far north. And then, we tend to look at bricks, so the sugar content, the pH, and we look at the grow degree days. So we know when we're going to harvest the berries. We want a certain brick, if at all possible, and that requires a certain grow degree day. So where did they get that information for their location? I know where to get it for Iowa because I can go to the Iowa State website and find it for literally the weather stations that are within a few miles of my farm. So it's kind of like understand what's the season look like, what are the activities you've got to do throughout the year, just so you know what you're getting into, and then plan for the long term. It may take another 3 to 5 years before the market takes off. We don't know, but we're in it for ourselves, for our own health benefits. We're in it because we believe it's going to take off in the future because of what it provides to the consumer. And that's why we're in the groups that we're in, because we're trying to work together. It's not that some other farmer is going to cause me to lose share. It's that other farmer is going to help me get to the volumes, or us to the volumes where it's going to take off, because consumers are now aware of what the product is and the health benefits it provides.
Another thing I would really stress in that regard is get aligned with one of these grower groups now.
Yes.
You may not be producing, it takes probably 4 years before you're going to have significant production, but get aligned with one of these groups now. So when the time comes, as the market grows, they're ready to take your berries when yours come into production. Don't wait until they're ready to harvest and then try to find somebody, but make contact with them now, get on their list, so they're aware of what you have.
Yeah, and they may have farmers already associated with them near you where you can share equipment, or share, if you both have to rent a harvester or a reefer to get your berries to a cleaning facility. It's great to plan ahead and make those connections so that when it is time, you can help them and they can help you. And I mean, this September, I was going down to, I was driving an hour to help another farmer harvest his berries, because you need hands on deck to help move the totes and so forth, or to get things moved from one location to another, just so the harvesting is efficient and you can get the berry totes onto pallets, onto the refrigerated trailer, so that it can get off or quickly to the processing plant. So it's not how much you have by yourself, it's how much you can do with somebody else to get started and get going.
Mm-hmm. So as we kind of wrap things up, I'm wondering, given that Aronias take 3 to 4 plus years to really start producing, for a producer entering into Aronia production now, they're going to kind of have to, or they're going to want to know where the markets are going to be 5 years from now. Do you have any idea what those will look like? What's your prediction?
That's really difficult to say. We planted our berries in the fall of 2009, and people were telling us, boy, your timing is great. You're going to catch it right as it comes mainstream. Well, we're still waiting, after, 12 years. So, but like we've discussed, I think things look better now than they ever have. These people that are involved now have the financing and the backing and the staff to make it successful. So, but if we get the funds to promote it and do a good job there and increase awareness, I think it will be successful, but it's kind of hard to predict right now.
Yeah. Well, the other nice thing about this berry, it's a perennial, but I've seen fields where the family was in agritourism. They've been in it for 30 plus years, and they showed me a field that the bushes have been in the ground for 30 years, and they looked like they were 4 to 5 year old bushes. Because you can go in, the canes or the stalks, whatever you want to call it, when they get too thick, you're going to either prune them off, or at some point, say 10 years down the line, you're going to mow them off they'll come back. They come back very quickly. And so, yeah, you take a certain percentage of your bushes out of production every year once they've grown, but it's not like you have to reinvest in new bushes every 10 years. If you're properly pruning and trimming and keeping up with things, you can have these bushes around 30 to 50 years, no problem. The bushes are already, sunk costs. Your cost from year to year is going to be your chemicals, your labor, and your harvesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to make a plug for the American Aronia Berry Association too, and also give a little more detail on what the benefits of membership are and what you do as an organization, and what kinds of things members can get out of their membership.
Well, initially when I joined the association or started growing Aronia, the big emphasis was on growing practices, fertilization, as Dean talked about, what to do when. But it's kind of shifting to increasing a market awareness and educating the public about the benefits of Aronia. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're really at now. Dean is our research person. He gets articles all the time about the health benefits of Aronia. We send them out, on a monthly, bi-monthly basis to the membership so they can go to the website and see these studies. We also hold a conference every year, typically in March, where we have outside speakers come in on, a variety of topics, either growing practices, marketing, different research people. So, we try to have a good program there that's beneficial to our members, and it's a good time to meet with other growers and discuss, issues you're having with them. So
and all those old conference talks that, whether, if you're new and you want to learn about growing or maintenance or, insect control and so forth, those are all available to members. And the scientific articles, you can go on our website under research. There's 20 plus tabs of, whether it's cardiovascular, immune, endocrine system, whatever it is, you can click on it and see all the latest publications. I update that about once a month. The board members, we also interact globally. We have people last year we had from Turkey and Poland come and talk at our conference. I gave a talk at the Polish conference via Zoom in September, and I've been asked to go back to their conference again next year. And that global connection also, we bring in, and we're cross-fertilizing people with ideas about how to do things better, how to create a market, what are the products we can use. And so the benefits just is a lot of education, connections, and helping synergistically drive awareness across the population.
Yeah, and you mentioned the American Aronia Berry Association was formerly the Midwest Aronia Association. Is your membership then primarily concentrated in the Midwest, or is it all over the country? Or
we've got members in Iowa is the largest state. There's been a lot of work done at Iowa State, in the last 10, 15 years. There's also Nebraska. We've got members in, South Dakota, North Dakota, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri. So it's primarily in the Midwest, but we get. I guess I'm surprised that the emails that come into the association. They can be, they've come from all over, a little bit of them, even some internationally.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you, Dale and Dean, so much for joining us. Just want to give you an opportunity to say any last comments about Aronia. Any final words?
Well, I just appreciate your reaching out to us, Stefan. It's been a great opportunity for us to, get the word out about Aronia, and, hopefully your podcast will help in that regard. So thank you.
Yeah, and my last word would be our motto: better berry, better life.
brought to you by the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension.